everybody, welcome back to Next Gen Lens. This is the video series where we break down key insights about the next generation of consumers, powered by Next Gen Voices. My name's Cassidy, and I am a quantitative researcher here at Market Vision Research and part of our Next Gen leadership team. Today, we have a special guest in the house. Joining me is Davis from our HR department, and he's a fellow Gen Zer.
Hey everyone, super excited to be here.
So today, we're planning on diving into what Gen Z values and why that matters. So if you caught our last episode with Allison and Lauren, you know that authenticity is at the core of what makes Gen Z tick. But let's be real. That's a word that gets kind of thrown around a lot, and it's almost become a buzzword of sorts. So today, we're planning to break it down to explore what authenticity actually means to Gen Z and why brands, employers, and honestly, anybody who really wants to connect with this generation should care.
Let's get into it.
So let's dive into defining authenticity. From a Gen Z perspective, authenticity is really about alignment. Are your words and your actions kind of in sync? Are you actually doing what you say you're going to do? I know it kind of sounds easy, but in reality, it's a tricky thing. And a lot of brands and companies kind of struggle to pull it off.
Absolutely. I see it probably the most in job hunting. When Gen Z candidates are looking at a company, for example, they aren't just reading the job description and calling it a day. They are looking into Glassdoor reviews. They are finding employee experiences or stories through social media. They are looking really into how the company treats people in reality. If a company says, for example, that they really value work-life balance, but then they're finding stories about how employees are really burnt out, Gen Z tends to notice that type of thing.
Yeah. And we've also found in our research throughout the years and talking to hundreds of different Gen Zers that this is a generation of researchers at heart. So that kind of makes sense with what you're saying as they look for employment opportunities. And they kind of have that same mindset when they're looking at purchasing decisions. So Gen Z isn't just looking at a brand's marketing of what they say that they're going to do. They tend to dive deep and they'll investigate a brand, whether it comes to things like sustainability efforts, social activism, or even just how they treat their own employees. So an example of this, if a fashion brand claims to be eco-friendly, but then they're kind of shady and sketchy about their labor practices, that's something that Gen Z is likely going to notice and look into.
Exactly. I think growing up as digital natives, Gen Z is super tuned in to marketing tactics, and we have been for our entire lives. We're really used to companies trying to sell us on half-truths. And our instinct is to say, what are you not telling us? What is the catch?
Yeah. Okay, so time for our aha moment. Here is the key takeaway. Gen Z doesn't expect perfection. We expect transparency.
Yeah, totally. When companies try to present this flawless, super polished image, it actually makes us trust them a little bit less.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, Davis, my question to you from like an HR perspective is, where do you kind of see this need for transparency showing up the most?
A lot of places. I think one of the big ones is mental health. We found in our research that Gen Z isn't looking for companies to solve all of their stress and all of their burnout. But in talking with potential candidates, they do expect honest conversations about workplace well-being, about what support systems exist, about what policies the company has that make a real difference, not just a meditation app or a newsletter that, talks about self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great point.
I think another big one that I like to talk about is pay transparency. It's really important to Gen Z. They aren't expecting to make six figures right away, but they do expect companies to be upfront about what a salary is going to look like, about what career growth opportunities might exist, and what compensation includes in terms of like benefits and things like that. So none of this like competitive salary language that isn't super helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of circling back to what you said earlier about Gen Z being a generation of digital natives, what we saw showing up in our research is that growing up in this era of instant information has kind of made Gen Z a bit more hyper aware of brands and when they're hopping on trends versus actually living out their values. So when a brand disingenuously supports a social movement because it's trending or maybe because other brands are also doing it, what we call that is slacktivism. And it can feel like a brand might just be preying on people's emotions with this. So while relatability is super important, it's essential that brands don't sacrifice their own authenticity for the sake of seeming relevant.
Absolutely. I think Gen Z really values genuine connections. We want to see that behind the scenes look of the company. What materials are they using? How are they treating their workers? Is there a real commitment behind the marketing strategy? Gen Z definitely has both the resources and the determination to find out the truth. So be upfront about it.
Yeah. And the brands that kind of win with Gen Z, they're not necessarily the ones that are doing everything perfectly. They're the ones that are kind of clearly stating their values. They're standing by those values, and they're bringing Gen Z along with them on that journey of kind of living out their values as well.
Yeah, it's this trust that companies want to earn is not a one-time achievement. It's not something you do the thing and you get trust. It's rather you work for it over time and you continually earn it through consistent action. And honestly, it's not just about what Gen Z buys. It has much broader life implications. Gen Z is more than just a generation of consumers. It's a generation that wants to be involved in these conversations, to be a participant. I see this all the time talking to Gen Z candidates. They want to feel like their work is meaningful. They don't just want to clock in and collect a paycheck. They want to make an impact and feel like their work matters.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And I think that Gen Z is really looking for that level of authenticity you're kind of describing in everything. It's in the brands that they're choosing, the career path they choose to pursue, and honestly, it comes up in the causes that they support as well. Okay, so to sum things up, for Gen Z, authenticity means walking the walk, even if that becomes uncomfortable, messy, or challenging.
So we want to hear your story. How does authenticity play a role in your brand or your company? Drop us a comment so that we can keep this conversation going. And if you found it helpful, please like and share. Your engagement helps us reach even more people and share these insights.
And make sure you join us next time where we will be debunking some of the biggest Gen Z stereotypes that are floating around out there. You definitely won't want to miss it.